I'm finally going to be talking about the Stonned palette from the brand Get Stoned. This is a influencer started brand. They originally started out selling rhinestones of all different kinds, different colors. Last year they started coming out with some makeup products, so the first one being the eyeshadow palette, and then they also just came out with some lip products, which I'm really excited. These are 5 shades and these are called Glitbalms. I'm wearing one on my lips. I'm going to be showing you swatches of each of them on the back of my hand as well as on my lips. But first, let's talk about the Stonned palette. So this is an all shimmer palette. You have some larger square pans and each of these shades are inspired by the rhinestones that they sell. At this point, I believe this palette has already been out for about a year. It is $42, which I think is really great for an all shimmer palette. Are these multi-chromes and like super ultra, you know, special holochromes, etc.? No, and I think that's why I like this palette so much, because you have some more special shades, some more kind of everyday shades, and you have the sparkle and you have some duochromes. While the price tag is $42 now, they have been running sales quite a bit on TikTok Shop, so I have seen this palette go as low as I believe $35 and maybe actually even I think $25 at some point, which I think is an absolute steal for this for sure. I've seen videos where the owner Meg has talked about just how much work went into creating this palette. This is a custom formula. Packaging is custom. She showed actually the process of this, and actually let's talk about the packaging. I love it. It's so cool. However, after having it for about, you know, since it launched and opening it and closing it and storing it, I have noticed that there's this happening, unfortunately, and I think it has to do with the layering of the foils and stuff. So unfortunately this does happen, which is such a shame because it is a really cool concept. And the packaging of the Glitbalms also has the same kind of design, which is like hollow with the large type on it. I mean, it's really cool. And before I forget, the pans are not magnetic, so you can't take them out. And if you try to take them out, you would have to repan them into magnetic pans, because these will definitely not stick down to an empty magnetic palette. When I first got the palette and swatched it, I did notice most of the shimmers had a little bit of creaminess to them. They weren't like fully squishy per se, but they were definitely a little bit more like buttery and on the slick side, which immediately made me concerned with wear time. And I did definitely have a little bit of creasing. It wasn't like right away, but I did have some creasing. But now that I've had it for some time, I have noticed that they are just not as creamy. I was already using a tacky primer when I used the palette, but especially now, definitely think it's very important. Some of the shades have almost like larger particle flecks throughout them. They kind of sit a little bit on top of the rest of the pigment and the base, kind of similarly to the Urban Decay Muda shadows in the way that they're just very sparkly. There's 2 shades called Hollow. There's Hollow Ghost and Baby Hollow. I don't see any hollow in this shade. It is more of like an iridescent type of shade. There are hollow particles in Baby Hollow. And then Blue Brown is just a beautiful duochrome. So let's get into the Glitbalm. So these are glitter packed, high shine, cruelty free, vegan, and these are $21 each, which I feel like is a little bit expensive, but the packaging on these is so nice. It is metal packaging and it is magnetic. And it's like, it feels heavy in the hand. Like, it's really nice packaging. It's really sleek and modern, and I really do like this packaging. And then on the bottom, you have kind of somewhat color-coded shade names on the bottom. So there is the shade Tempt, which has basically like a yellowy brown base with blue sparkles on top, and the sparkles do shift to purple. I feel like this one is probably the most subtle, so you can swipe these on very just like a light kind of layer on the lips, and I actually think that's probably the best way to use them, because some of them I did notice when I was adding a little bit more to really show off the color, I did notice that it started to feel a little bit kind of thick on the lips, and when I go like this like a lot, I can feel the glitter a little bit. These remind me of the JCat Mood Flick Hollow Sparkle Lip Balms. However, those have the pH adjusting color. They do stain the lips, and these do not, which I much prefer that they don't. I really wish the JCat ones didn't. And those are a little bit more like more metallic than kind of glittery. Like, these ones are definitely a little bit more glittery, and I think they have a nice variety of shades. So let's get into the detail swatches of the shimmer shadows, some comparison swatches, tutorial, and then my thoughts at the end of the video. First shade is Blue Brown, and this one has a blue flash straight on with a shift to purple. I see a little bit of green as well. It has a warm brown base, but it can be definitely built up to be a little bit more opaque or sheared out. NYX shade is Hollow Ghost. And this is a iridescent shade that doesn't shift. It looks a little bit light blue, especially in the sparkles of it, but it is quite icy and I don't see any holographic particles in it. And Candy Apple is a vibrant magenta shade and it's pretty sparkly but really smooth. Champagne has just ever so slightly a little bit more of a texture, and it is just that, a champagne. It is stunning. It is ultra very sparkly. Diamond is a smooth silvery shade. I do feel like this one could be sheared out a little bit. It is not like the most opaque silver shade, like a molten metal per se. It's more of a sparkly silver shade. I definitely think this one could be like topped over some of the other shades. And then Ocean Eyes is a green shade with a little bit of almost like gold flecks throughout it, so it makes it seem like it's a little bit lighter, kind of straight on, the way that the light bounces off the sparkles. Baby Hollow is a very interesting taupey leaning shade. It looks a little bit more pink here. It looks like a dusty lavender in the pan, and this one does have hollow particles throughout it. Nugget is a darker gold leaning a little bit more orange, and then Old Money is a warm tone brown. And it does have a lot of sparkles throughout it. They're a little bit like a lighter cream color sparkle, almost silvery, essentially. And then the last shade is Oil Spill, and this is a black shimmer shadow that shifts purple and flashes blue kind of straight on. And it does also have purple sparkles throughout it. It's a very dimensional shade and very sparkly. Primed my eyelid with the Ulta Beauty eyeshadow primer, and I'm going to be using the Shine On Shimmer Shadow Enhancer, which is in collaboration between me and Clionadh Cosmetics. And I'm going to be doing only a little bit at a time since this does dry down pretty quickly. So I'm going to be doing an eyeshadow wing, so I'm just going to kind of map it out with the doe foot applicator. And I'm going to be using this Game Beauty EO4 brush, and I'm picking up Oil Spill. And it's very sparkly. It's like a almost slightly denim-y blue black shimmer shadow. Like the sparkles are what's blue, but there's some other colors in there as well. It's just a really beautiful dimensional kind of shimmer shadow, and you'll probably get some fallout when you use these shades, so keeping that in mind, I would do your eyes before your base. So I'm just going to kind of feather the edge a little bit. And then moving on, I'm going to put on the rest of my lid, the Shine On Shimmer Shadow Enhancer. I'm just going to tap it out. And I'm picking up Old Money. You can see it's a little bit flaky. And these do apply really nicely with a finger as well. And that's just going to go all over the rest of my lid onto the outer corner. And then I'm going to wipe this brush off, and I'm taking Champagne, and I'm going to put that in the inner corner. Kind of going up into my crease and hugging the shimmer shadow on the lid. Just a little bit more. And I'm just going to use my finger to like spread this out and kind of just blend it out because it does have that brown base to it. I feel like it looks a little less warm once I actually put it on the lid. And here's the finished look. With flash. So I've had this palette since 2024, so I do feel like I have a pretty good grasp on how I feel about it. I was definitely a little bit apprehensive when I first got it, as I said, and some of the shades felt a little bit more buttery, a little bit more creamy, which for me, having hooded oily lids, is a little bit more of a red flag, and I have to kind of find a way to use formulas like that works for me, that doesn't crease almost immediately. So I did have some initial creasing, etc. I definitely have to use a tacky primer with this one. I would say if you have hooded lids, if you have hooded and oily lids, definitely use a tacky primer, especially with some of the more kind of glittery, sparkly shades like Champagne and Old Money and also Oil Spill. Based on my personal preference, I think this palette would have been perfect if Candy Apple and Ocean Eyes were different, maybe just more topper like, and maybe not so like opaque color. Like I don't see myself reaching for this kind of shade like ever. And while this one is beautiful, I also am not really going to use that one on a day-to-day, but I feel like the rest of these are stunning. I especially love Old Money, Champagne, Blue Brown, Baby Hollow. Those are my favorite shades. I don't know if they will ever launch them as single eyeshadows. I don't really feel like that's the audience for that brand, so I don't really see them launching this with magnetic pans or launching singles, but who knows, maybe in 2025 we will see that. I think what you're getting for $42, and even better if you get it on sale, I think it's definitely worth it. I have really enjoyed playing with this one. It is a great kind of one and done palette for sure, or throw a matte in the crease and put a shimmer on the lid type of palette with some like high impact for a lower price tag if you don't want to spend $50, $60, $70 on an all shimmer palette. Also like that there's only 10 pans of shimmer shadows in here. As for the Glitbalms, I do have to try these out some more, but as I mentioned, these are definitely like a thinner layer and then go versus a thicker layer, especially if you don't like the look and the feeling of glitter on your lips, then you might not fully enjoy these as much if you put on too much of a thick layer. I wore one of the shades the other day for a few hours and it was extremely comfortable. Like it felt really moisturizing. Sometimes a lip balm or lip oil can kind of give you that initial feeling, oh yeah, this is creamy, and then over time I feel like it actually feels like it's drying out my lips. I don't feel the same with these. These are really nice and creamy in just like the right amount of way, but you want to make sure you're not putting on too much. So I'm really excited about these, and I love the different shades that they have, the different levels of sparkle. I'm really curious to try to layer some of these over a lipstick to see how that is, but I do think these are meant to be a little bit more of just like a little bit of that ethereal sparkle on your lip to go with your ethereal eye look, if you know what I mean. I'm looking forward to seeing what they launch next, if they would do a part 2 of this palette. Are they going to launch some face products? Definitely staying tuned and curious and watching their page. Let me know in the comments below if you tried the palette out. Did you check out the Glitbalms? I would love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. And that's everything for this video. If you enjoyed it, don't forget to give it a thumbs up, and thank you so much for watching. I hope to see you next time.